And let's face it, when you're 18, 19, and they ask you to decide who you want to be, sometimes people are not ready to make that decision in their life yet. But
Mhm.
then later on, life verifies, and they're like, okay, now I'm ready to do this, but my university degree is completely different. So hey ho, it is what it is.
This is the Freedom Mastery Podcast, the place to learn about rent-to-rent and other property investment strategies. Your host, Camille Domsky, has spent 5 years studying advanced property investing strategies and using creative methods to acquire houses. Now, he wants to help you reach your property investing goals. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome everybody to another freshly squeezed episode of the Freedom Mastery Podcast. As always, with massive enthusiasm, I want to welcome to the studio, to the call, somebody who I know for quite a long time, somebody who's very successful in property, who's very versatile in property, and who's doing phenomenal things, and he cannot stop growing and growing and growing. And of course, when I see his posts on the internet, I could not simply skip his profile and not to invite him to the Freedom Mastery podcast. Phenomenal investor, phenomenal entrepreneur, phenomenal person when it comes to money raising in property as well. Without me further ado, Liam, kick it off, introduce yourself and tell people who you are.
Well, first of all, thank you for that warm welcome. Like that was impressive. There's a long list of things. I do like it.
Hey, if you like
Yeah,
it and everybody else, then...
well, yeah, first and foremost, my name's Liam Davies. I've been in property not actually that long. Probably started beginning of 2021, so about 3 years or so. But prior to that, I was in business for about 10 years. So started off really not knowing what on earth to do, but started my first business at 19. And it was a fitness and nutrition coaching company in which I managed a small team. I was doing that whilst I was in university. So you have like a gap year, well, not a gap year, but like a placement year in universities. And most people went and did like industry placements. I decided I'm going to be crazy, set my own business. Because why not? You've got the time, you're young, you may as well take risks, right? So took the risk, dived in, and yeah, I realized that had no clue what I was doing. I did business and international relations as my kind of degree, but it doesn't teach you about business. Like I don't care what anybody says. It's so much different starting your own business than doing a degree or just getting the basic education on it. You need to go through it. You need to go through the grinder and see what actually works. All the stuff that is in the degree is really based around a lot large businesses. And it's good if you're applying for like a FTSE 250 company. But when you're just starting a small business or just getting your first pound in, it's so much different. And the skills that you really need, which were the things that I lacked severely, was the marketing and the sales. So
two
that's how I
two main
started.
two main skills in order to run a business.
Yeah, yeah. I think sales and marketing is what grows businesses, and
Yes.
I was shit at both. So, are you allowed to swear on the podcast?
Say that again.
Am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean,
Okay,
yeah, absolutely. I think
light.
children are not listening to that podcast anyway.
It was quite
I mean,
light
maybe
anyway.
if somebody is looking to grow their portfolio being aged eight, maybe they're looking already
That
for
would
a
be
dating
good.
partner.
That would be good. That would be good.
No, that's
My hat
absolutely
goes off to them. The earlier you start, the better, right? But yeah. So like starting my first business, and yeah, although we had a small team and was able to grow that, it didn't start exactly like that, right?
yeah.
The first thing that actually happened was I did all the kind of things that you shouldn't do, which was spending a bunch of money on the website, making sure everything looked pretty. Oh, I'm gonna logo design, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I spent like thousands and thousands of pounds. Being a student, you had all money, right? So I managed to muster up all the money I could possibly muster and spent all of that before I'd even got a client in. So lo and behold, we have the big launch day and it was absolutely crickets. No one was there. I was like expecting, the pounds to roll in. Nothing happened like that. It was nothing. So I was like, damn, this is not what I was expecting. This is not what business school had prepared me for. So I decided that I've got to fix this, and was trying to, Google, well, how do you get more sales in, all this kind of stuff, and stumbled on digital marketing. And digital marketing, very different, like, the probably many years ago that I started it, but it was kind of the inception of social media. Social media just became a thing really at that point.
Yeah.
So I really learned more about the marketing side, was able to start growing through the marketing, and then eventually I got to that point in that business where I didn't actually love what I was doing. So I parked that business, but I still love the marketing. And I was helping people in the fitness and nutrition coaching space with their marketing. So I was helping gyms, personal trainers, that kind of thing. And from that, we went and started a marketing agency. So the marketing agency, which was primarily just working with any kind of local business. So I work with car dealerships, architects, construction firms, whatever it was, plumbers, whatever. So work with a massive broad scale of businesses and tried to help them with their marketing. It was successful for a time, but as algorithms change and Facebook pages were like a really big thing back when I started. So you could post on Facebook and that would be fine and you get reach. But then it was the case of, oh no, we need to learn paid ads, you need to learn this, you need to know that. So it was a lot of iterations going through and a lot of setbacks as you kind of figure one thing out, they'd slap you with another thing and then you have to keep going. But I found my niche. So originally it was within the health and beauty industry. So really focused on one type of client. And eventually started working with plastic surgeons in LA and New York. So that was the big thing that really started increasing our revenue, was being very specific in who we were going after, but also looking for the people with the most money. So
Right.
that's kind of like the whole idea behind focus and go after where the money is, and having something that you could scale and repeat on demand. That's where I
Right.
made the most money there.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
it was an interesting one.
it's an interesting one because from the sounds of it, the story tells me like the first thing I picked up is that you started off going into the business, you
Hmm.
stumbled upon a completely new world and something that probably no school can teach you. The reason why alternative education exists, just like coaching and mentoring services, there are so many of them nowadays, but it's mainly because the traditional education failed. Most of us failed on that, and even when somebody wants to do what is their original profession, most people don't do it, and they struggle. They pay 50,000, 100,000 pounds for their education at the university and whatever. They end up with a massive bill to repay later on, and they still do like a completely different job. But the beauty of it is that we live in times where alternative education exists, and you can buy the knowledge and buy the information, or even get the education for free to a certain extent if you want to do something different. And let's face it, when you're 18, 19, and they ask you to decide who you want to be, sometimes people are not ready to make that decision in their life yet. But
Hmm.
then later on, life verifies, and they're like, okay, now I'm ready to do this, but my university degree is completely different. So hey ho, it is what it is. But then another thing I've noticed from what you said is that you kind of quickly pivoted. So you started an agency, which was great, but then you realized that it's not as you wish it was going. Like clients were not knocking your door left, right, center, right? And that's the reality. From day one, you have to build your business step by step, and it's going to be on a very rare occasion when you start and all of a sudden you've got plenty of clients. You really have to identify your client, find a way to find them. As you say, they have to have money because it's not just about finding the client, but that client has to be able to pay you for your service as well. And it sounds like with the way you found your niche, you really pivoted the business and you really gave it a true direction, a true north, as people sometimes say. So it would be interesting to know what did you do? What did you apply in your business in order to find this very unique and specific niche?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So first and foremost, what we needed to do was look at where the money was. So we wanted to understand what we could get results with, what could we do over and over again, what was an underserved market at the time, but also what were people going to pay big money for, right? So not only did the clients have a lot of money, you had to have a service in which they were getting paid a lot of money. So, for example, we did things like there was Brazilian butt lifts and like when like the Kim Kardashian booty was like a big thing and all that kind of stuff. Well, that we had all the different surgeries, but plastic surgery is expensive, right? So some of the procedures were like $50,000. When you had the $50,000, I needed one sale, and they were like, well, they could pay us good money and still make a lot of money on the back end for what we did.
Yeah.
So making sure that you were working with services were very high ticket made a difference, and we didn't have to do much. If we even got one in a month, they were like happy days. This is beneficial, but often they made so much more than that, right? So having something there which was I can deliver a really good value for money for the person and still charge a lot. That's where we landed up in. The US was just so much more open to this kind of marketing side of things. Like people weren't as open to marketing in the UK. I always find like the UK is on the back tail of a lot of the kind of innovations that happen. So eventually it comes to the UK, but they're a bit slower to pick it up. Whereas the US attitude is go for it. And they were way more up for it. And I had the conversations with these doctors and dentists and all these kind of things because I did cosmetic dentistry as well. They were just so much more up for it because they'd seen other people doing it. Whereas in the UK, like I was only a select few people, maybe in London, that were doing it. Whereas it's all over the US. But we wanted to go where the real money was. Where are they spending for this stuff? And LA, Beverly Hills in particular, we had clients, and Beverly Hills was, that's the mecca for like plastic surgery and all that kind of stuff. And New York, New York is where the financial district of the US really is. So a lot of the money's thrown through there, and people coming and they want surgeries, they cosmetic. You need to look good in these kind of cities, right? It's a really like ingrained within the kind of the bedrock of these kind of places. So you want to really focus on those areas where there's high demand. And that's what we did.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the episode right now. If you're anything like me, you're definitely not a spectator. You want to know what's next, what's the next move. And the next logical move for you is to send me a text on my private number. It's 075 22 571 026. That's 075 22 571 026. With your permission, my aim will be to understand your plans and goals, and then to identify actions that will take you from where you are right now to your point of destinations. This will truly help you to gain unfair advantage in your rent-to-rent business. Now, let's get back to the video. Amazing. It sounds simple, but you see, it doesn't sound that obvious when you first asked that question. So you took it step by step. You really understood that you want to be where the money is. That's absolutely brilliant. In my opinion, this is the step that people very often miss, because you think that you can become a millionaire by selling matches on street, right? It's not going to be possible unless you have a factory that produces like millions of them every day. But that's another story. But you took it step by step. You knew where the money is. You understood which location would work best for you. I agree that to a certain extent, like UK market is very much different to American market. American market is so much more open to different opportunities and to different options. You've got Dubai market right now that's absolutely booming, and there is a lot of capital there, for example. But yeah, it's about finding where the money is, who's the right person, and really targeting specifically to those people. And I suppose you also developed a very good message that was just directly speaking to them from the moment where they saw you for the first time, or they saw maybe your ad or whatever. They knew that you're talking directly to them. So your message must have been crafted to match what they're looking for, and that is just it sounds simple, but it's not as easy to craft.
No,
I know that from experience. And to be honest with you, it took me a long time to really understand this in depth, and to really kind of identify who's the person who I'm trying to help with my services as well. Because at the beginning, again, a very, very simple mistake that people do, and I have to admit I was making that mistake, I tried to help everybody. The problem was that when you try to help everybody, nobody will want your service. That's how it works. If you try to sort of narrow it down, niche down, and sort of polish your message so it speaks only to certain group of people, then all of a sudden it becomes more personal, like more unique to the group of people who you're targeting. And that is a skill. I think good marketers make a lot of money nowadays, and there is a reason for that, because good marketing nowadays is essentially what's driving every business, isn't it?
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
great. Tell me, okay, so tell me, I understand where you came from when it comes to your marketing, the digital marketing agency. What took you to the world of property?
Yeah. So that was a funny one. So in the prop, well, I'll start with the marketing. In the marketing, although you're growing, you've essentially got this dynamic with clients, especially if they're earning us a lot of money. Like my clients had houses on the actual Beverly Hills, the actual I mean, these places cost like 20 mil, like some of these places are absolutely insane. So and the same with like the New York guys. I had like this dynamic where they also felt that you were inferior to them, which was really interesting. So doctors, plastic surgeons, a lot of had like massive egos, and with that, you also were their bitch. So I was like, well, that's not really what I want for my life, right? I want to take control, and that doesn't really align with what I'm doing. Like, although I'm the boss of my company, I always felt like I was answering to somebody else, and that's not the position I wanted to be in. Like, I set out to be a business owner, and then it still felt like there's somebody else to answer to. So I went through this process of going, right, I don't want to do this forever. And it's not that I love marketing. Like marketing is always going to be core to what I do. It's just the client dynamic was off, and I didn't like that. So I was like, well, I'm working all these hours and it's a lot. Like I got a team, I've got to pay staff and everything. I'm thinking, right, how do I have something that if things happen, shit hits the fan, what do I do? And property has always been in the background, thinking, oh yeah, it'd be a great idea, but I thought I'd never have enough money to do it. But I was making good money in the marketing agency. So I still think like I have good money, but I still for some reason thought that I didn't have enough to do it. And I then decided, well, I'm gonna do it. But then it took me 2 years of just absorbing myself in it because I didn't really understand, even though it took 2 years, I didn't really understand all the mechanics of property. And, I people would talk about LTVs and BRRs and all these acronyms. And I was thinking, right, okay, do I get that? Or just like nod along, like, yes, this is okay. I like had no idea. So it took me like 2 years to really just understand it. And that's with doing nothing. That's just going to some networking events, the books, the general stuff, not actually getting involved with it, but just absorbing things, like the podcast and everything. So just really absorbing it. But it took a point where I was like, right, I need to do this. And I had a mentor, and he was in like good money from HMOs. And I say he's a mentor, he's a friend who then became a mentor because he knew that I wanted to get into property. And he's like, just do it. And I was like, what, just do it? Is that a thing? Like, can you just do things? Although I'd set up my businesses and just done it, it was like this felt like such a risk, right? So I had him in the wing cheering me on, but what it really took was for me to commit and like pay for coaching, really. That commitment of the money being handed over and all the stuff that I knew, like I was like, okay, when I paid for the money and then I got to see the course and everything like that, I was like, oh, I know this stuff. I do know it.
Yeah.
It's exactly marries up with what I was reading, but it gave me the permission to do it. And that's where I went and bought, what was it, 6 houses in 7 months of starting at that point.
Okay.
And majority of that was with other people's money. So I started off with going for my own, and I was like, I couldn't use other people's money. So I started documenting my journey from the first one and using the marketing side of things, videoing it, telling people about the projects and all that kind of stuff. And through that, I then raised finance to build the rest of the portfolio.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible. So if there is one thing from today's podcast that somebody can take on and forget the rest of it, it would be, yes, you can do it. if you're asking anybody's permission, then we're giving you permission today. Yes, just go out and start doing it. Of course,
Yeah.
don't do it in a daft way that you don't know anything and go out and do it, because simply you can fail very quickly and miserably. But absolutely, if you feel that you can do it, you've got some foundations and you've got some knowledge and you were waiting maybe for something to happen, then absolutely go away and do it. So yes, with your blessing, Liam, maybe with my blessing, can they go and start doing things?
100%. Like, invest in yourself, though.
Yeah,
I think that's what was missing, is the investment in myself. Like, I could read the books, I could watch the YouTube videos, I could do all these things, but that commitment, like, paying someone like yourself or paying us and having coaching to do it, that was the difference maker,
yeah,
really. Because also all those second guessing, and especially when you've got a lot of money at stake, having somebody in your corner to be like, what do you think of this? And knowing that you've got experience in your corner gives you that confidence to go through with it anyway. So I'd say that's a big part of it is yeah, I don't think I would have done it if I hadn't had the people in the wing. I couldn't have just winged. I wanted that community aspect. I wanted like other people around me. I wanted a coach who was going to help me. And that's really what it came down to. So always having that extra eyes on things to just give you that security that, oh yeah, you're doing the right thing. That's all it was.
no, absolutely, 100%. Now, perception of that, different people have different perception, and everybody has got their own choice.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Maybe after this, somebody will say, okay, maybe this is something that I need, or maybe somebody will just go in a way that they will never pay somebody else to support them and teach them, and essentially become the member of their power team. Because some people just say that they'll never invest in the mentoring because they believe it's a waste of money. In my opinion, if you're afraid to invest in yourself because it's just about your own growth, then ask yourself a question: where do you think you're going to get with this
Yeah,
mindset? You know,
yeah,
it's a funny one, but essentially, people who are typically coming to this podcast, or people who I meet, people who already do some great things in rent to rent or BRR or different property investing strategies, every single one of those people is somebody who either invested in themselves back in the day, or they invested in themselves back in the day and they still keep reinvesting.
yeah,
I mean, I rarely really, I cannot remember if I met somebody who was really already well established in property industry and then they never invested in their education. They haven't done any course, they didn't have any mentor.
mm,
And even my mentor has got a mentor. In fact, he's got multiple mentors. I've got mentors as well. I would
yeah,
say probably I've got two mentors. And I will always keep having a mentor because that's to me the best way to ensure that I'm going in the right direction. Because
yeah,
my subjective thinking, I think that something might be good for me. But if somebody looks at that from the external perspective, they can tell me otherwise and they can see the things in a different way. It's almost like being a swimmer, like going to the Olympic Games. Every single one of them has got a coach. The
yeah,
reason being is that without a coach, they would not be able to improve and
mm,
get better every single day. And that's the way I see it as well. So that
yeah.
that's great. And yeah, so I appreciate what you've just said because I'm on the same page with you, Liam, 100%.
If someone could go and do it without it, like all power to you. But I just find the people who have that kind of support in their corner typically do better. So I'm not to say that you can't do it, but I think that you'll go f much further if you do have the support from somebody who's been there, done it, and who's further ahead than you.
I think much further and also much faster. I
Mm,
think that the
yeah,
progress will become faster for you if you just use somebody else's help because they've already done it. I mean, yeah, if you're taking a mentor, just take somebody who's already done it and they can just guide you through that process. And they'll tell you where you can cut corners and where you should really just be careful about doing different things. But that's another story. So I think we made a point here. And another thing I wanted to go back to, you already mentioned that you used your first project to leverage your credibility in order to then raise money and go to more projects and build a portfolio this way. So tell me a bit more about money raising aspect because I believe in property world, massive misconception nowadays. People are afraid of this subject. Some people try to avoid this subject. They think that they can only build a portfolio based on their own money. Talk to me about your point of view and how did you come about, or how did you start raising money from other people? That would be definitely helpful to our listeners.
yeah. Well, I'll start with why I did it.
Yeah.
So although I had the money there, using other people's money allowed me to go further and faster, like you said, right? So it was really about if anything did go, people raise money too fast without having anything in the background to support them. Like what I typically see is people want to raise finance, they want to build a portfolio, they haven't got any cash flow in the first place. That's the biggest mistake, right? You should focus on your cash flow first, then you can look at building your wealth. But everybody jumps to, I want to buy buy-to-lets, I want to do this, want to build my wealth, right? That's, what you want to do. But a couple of £100 is not going to change your life in many cases. And if a boiler goes, a roof goes, or whatever it is, then that's going to wipe out your profit that you've made for the year on that house. So my idea was, well, I can keep my cash flow coming in. I can use other people's money and I can still build my wealth. And if anything goes wrong, I've got the money to be able to deploy into the projects. Now, these projects were maybe, well, it started off like 20 odd grand refurbs. They went up to 30 to 40 grand refurbs, right? If anything happened, like a roof going, like that happened to us 2 weeks in or like a week into a completion, part of the roof fell off. Now I had to pay for, yeah, that was not in the refurb. This was supposed to be like a light refurb, like 5 grand refurb. And part of the roof fell off. Well, I was raising money on that and I was given a fixed percentage return to an investor. Well, I can't go back to them and go, I need more money. I don't really want to do that. It doesn't give them confidence in me. I just spent that money, got it done. Although I got it done twice wrong because I had the wrong people on it. So first time I did it, we made people to do it quickly because the council were on to me because you have to make it a safe area. Otherwise you get like penalized. So I ended up getting like fines every single day until I got it done. So I went and did it, and then ended up using Dodgy Builder. Went on Checker Trade. They had loads of reviews, and I thought, yeah, that would be fine. And they did a dodgy job. Then I had to go get it done again after that, and having to rip all the stuff out originally. And in the end, I had to have a new roof. Like a new roof costs more than it's double, So like if people put a 10%, 15% contingency in their refurb, well, this was double my refurb getting a new roof. So that would that would have blown my contingency way out to the water.
Yeah.
Imagine if I went back to the investor and went, right, it's going to cost me this much extra. Can I borrow this off you? Oh, it's going to cost me that one didn't work. I need to do it again. I'm going to borrow this much off you. Oh, actually, sorry, I need to buy a whole new roof. So now that's going to cost me this. Let me lend this more off you. You can't be doing that kind of thing, right? But because I had my own money in the background that I wasn't using my own money, they never even knew about any of the challenges that we were going through. They just got their money and their interest and they were happy. And then they reinvested again because it was security that they're looking for. And that's what you're able to provide. So they're going to get better money than they were getting in the bank. That's why I did it, was like I could have used my own money. Yeah, I would eventually teeth it out and had to go and raise finance or build more cash flow in the business to go and do it. But I could build wealth by holding my money back, using other people's money, but then giving them the security that I could always pay them back. So that security is a big thing. I wouldn't be lending to somebody who hasn't got the money. If shit hit the fan and you're giving personal guarantees, what's there to stand on? What are you actually going to be able to pay them back with?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my money came in.
Amazing. And I think right now, not even right now, I've seen that for years, since I've really started in property. People technically say that you can essentially raise money tomorrow, and it's just easy. You can start the business today, and tomorrow you can start raising finance. Well, in all fairness, if you're starting today, let's say that your knowledge is zero, who's going to lend you money based on zero knowledge of yourself? Like, if you haven't got knowledge, if you haven't done any training, if you haven't got any experience and credibility, then based on what gives you the right to ask other people's money and giving them some interest back? So I think big misconception right now and giving that false belief to people is that you can really just start the property business today and tomorrow raise money. But of course, there is more responsibility. There's huge responsibility to it. So I would never advise to raise money if you haven't done it yourself in the first place. And on top of that, the whole concept about no money down deals and just raising finance so easily, people just say like it was so easy and it's so achievable, but at the same time the reality is different. And my approach to those things is always pragmatic, and I want to give people like the true experience. What you're saying right now is exactly aligned with my approach and how I speak to people, how I teach to my students and everybody else. Same thing comes with rent to rent. Like if somebody says that you can just literally go away tomorrow and secure a rent to rent deal, okay, based on what? Because if you don't know anything about rent to rent and you haven't got the connections, you don't know what to say to people, what are your core values, what is your business really doing and how it's helping landlords, based on where's the foundation of the business, right? And that sometimes takes weeks, if not months, to set it all up in one place. I mean, yes, we can speed up the whole process, but it's not just a case of starting a business today and securing a deal tomorrow. Even deal sourcers, they need more time to secure a deal. So that's very powerful, and I do appreciate you saying that. Now, tell me, when you first raised your first sort of pot of money for your project number one for Raise Finance, what did you do? Like, who did you find? Was that somebody from maybe from your family or a friend?
So that was from me posting the original project that we did, and I was doing like videos ongoing with that. So I was updating people on what I'm doing and had the marketing background. So I was like, okay, let's leverage this, use it, get the video out. Like that was the main thing, is actually going live into projects, showing how we secured it, what our plans were, all that kind of stuff. So by the time we went on to our second project, then I was reaching out to people like constantly after that, right? So people who like my videos and wanted to know more, I'd ask how you doing, all this kind of stuff, and just get the conversation going. So I always say about digging your well before you need it. And this is the difference, is most people want to raise finance, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to do it, because a lot of people come to me and it's like, oh, I need to raise this finance. You're too late. You're too far into the game. What you need to do is look at the people who could potentially lend you the money or JV with you, whatever it is, way before the deal comes along. So that when you do have an ask, you have some equity there. And I mean equity in the relationship.
Yeah, I
To
understand.
be able to leverage it. So I was doing that, and I was having conversations. I was keeping everybody warm, so that when a project did drop, I had 3, 4, 5 people that I could reach out to who would be interested in investing and deploying the money. So I actually did that, and I was always having those conversations. And it was a friend, like it ended up being a friend of mine who I could choose out the interest rates as well. So like what was interesting was I could just take the lowest interest rate available to me, because I had people essentially bidding for the interest that they would want. So some people would want like 20%. I'm like, no. Some people want like 50. No, and I ended up getting the first one. I raised it 7% interest rate. So that worked for me. And I knew their situation. I knew how much they were getting in the bank. And I asked them, what are they doing about their investments, all this kind of stuff. And that's where I went for the lowest interest rate that was available to me on a flexible term of like 12-month rolling contract with them, with a personal guarantee. And that's how I went with them, because I presented them a deal when the time was right. They were all in, and they were just like, yeah, let's do it.
Great. That sounds incredible. Very good tip here, guys. If you want to raise money, just start building relationships now, and then reach out to them when you physically have got a project. It's not that you can contact somebody who you haven't spoken to for 5 years or 10 years and tell them like, hi, how are you doing? By the way, I need 50 grand.
Yeah.
It's not how this works, right? And sometimes the problem is that if you go to some courses or some property events, they'll tell you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, because if you do it, what other people will think about you, what they will tell you. Like it's very, very bad way of doing it. Absolutely. Just look after the relationships. I think the very most important thing in every business, property especially, and that's regardless of the strategy, whether that's BRL, lease option agreement, rent to rent, whatever that might be, relationships is essentially like everything. If you've got on the table a good deal or you've got a good relationship, 1,000 times I will choose the good relationship over the deal. Because one relationship can give me multiple deals. That could be a JV partner. That could be a game changer for everything. One deal, it's great to have a deal, but it's not going to be a game changer for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way to look at those things. At least this is how I see those things.
Yeah, I agree. Well, there was I don't know whether you know of Naval Ravikant, but Naval Ravikant, he built this company called Angel List, which is essentially an angel investment company. And he always talked about how to do deals in business. And you're looking for long-term games with long-term people. So having a long-term perspective in how you're going to play the game. Because if you take and hit somebody on the short term just to get a deal done, it's it's not going to catch up with you then, but it'll catch up with you the long term. Like if people know how you do deals and you have a good reputation long term, it's very hard to be 20 years, 10 years, whatever it is in this game and not have a good reputation to keep going on. Like people know the bad people if you've been doing it long enough, right?
Yeah.
So if you hear somebody's been in it for 10 years, 20 years, enough people will have something to say about them because they've dealt with them. So you know how that person operates, and if everybody's saying good words about you, they're going to think, well, this person's credible. I can do business with this guy. That's what you want. Is somebody who's like, oh, okay, this is the best person to do a deal with, and they're fair, and they will make sure that everybody's looked after. That's the type of person that you want to be, and you want to be seen as that. And it starts from day one.
Wow. Perfect. There's nothing else I can say on top of that. Like I completely 100% agree with you. And to be honest with you, I wanted to ask you a question about what 3 tips you could give to somebody who wants to start. Now, you already gave like very 2 powerful tips, at least 2, I would say. First one is definitely focus first on building your cash flow before you go into building your wealth. I think this is a brilliant way of starting things. If you don't have that cash flow, then don't go into bigger things. Start with building cash flow and then go into and build your credibility and then go into building your wealth. And then secondly, you talk about creating those great relationships before you start raising finance. And of course, as you say, if somebody wants to raise finance today or tomorrow, and as you say, it's already too late, go back to basics, build relationships, and then ask people for money, right? So these are already like 2 amazing tips that I could say, and I would say, just take it, and with those 2 tips, you're going to be so much more successful. What would be your tip number 3 when it comes to being successful in property investing and really just building that wealth?
I would probably say that this isn't just to property investing, but business as a whole. I always apply this equation to everything that I do in terms of business, whether it's even raising finance, right? So raising finance, putting a new service out, whatever it is. So there's a thing called the sales velocity equation. And sales velocity equation is weighted like this. So first, you've got your promise. What do you promise people that you're going to deliver to them? Yeah. So that's weighted at 10%. The second thing is the risk reversal, right? So whatever risk reversal you have in there. So if, for example, you're raising finance, that's the security that you're able to give them, whether it's a personal guarantee, whether it's a charge on the property. So a charge. I'll give for people who don't know what a charge is. A charge is your ability to have the same kind of security that a bank would have over a property that they're lending on. Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's your risk reversal. How do you reverse risk? So every person that you interact with are going to be looking at what are you offering, your promise, what risk is involved, and both of those are weighted at 10% each. Now, the final thing that's weighted at 80% is the evidence. The evidence that you can do what it is you say you're going to do. That's what sways people. So whatever decision you're going to make, focus on building as much evidence as possible to back up the first 2 things. The thing that you say that you're going to deliver and the security in what it is you're going to deliver. And that then propels your business, propels your investing. If you apply that equation to everything and think, right, I need to have a good promise, I need a good offer in place, I need to make sure that the risk is minimized for the person who's investing with me. I need to make sure that I'm documenting and evidencing what it is that I'm doing so that people have that security that I can provide what it is that I'm offering them. You've got the perfect business because if you can deliver on all three of those fronts and you put the equation together, you increase the amount of sales, the deals you're going to be able to do exponentially. But if you don't have those things, that's where things slow down.
Wow. Yeah, to be honest with you, this equation itself, it's like it's very powerful. It's definitely about having the right promise, as you say, the right offer, having the right um, sort of evidence to back it all up. Like nowadays, every purchasing decision you make, especially for something that costs more money, you're checking reviews, you're checking testimonials. That's essentially evidence, right? Um, so it's a massive chunk of every business, and it's also important to ask people for testimonials, for evidence, and really just build that credibility of your company, of yourself. Yeah, I would say all the tips that we've got in this podcast itself. I mean that I'll just sign my name on it and I'll just push this out. Of course, when it's out, I'll just say to everybody, just go and listen to this podcast because the tips and the value there is like incredible. So just one final thing, I wanted to go back to what you said about building cash flow in order to build wealth. What would you elaborate on this specific aspect? Let's say for somebody who would like to be in property, they would love to build wealth, but right now they are still stuck in a 9 to 5 jobs, and they kind of like make money in order to pay their bills, maybe to have a bit of entertainment, but on top of that, they haven't got too much saving, and they really don't have that extra cash flow. They haven't got a big pot of money to begin with. Where would you start if you were in that position in order to start with building that cash flow? What would you do?
I would work with somebody who is already in the business. So I never understood the egos are too big starting at the beginning, and you want to eliminate ego as much as possible. And by doing that, you're able to be humble in what it is that you're going to do, and you're going to learn, right? The first year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, like learn as much as you can. Take it as a university course where you didn't get paid. Yeah. I didn't get paid all those years in university. I took the education, although it wasn't that great. I took the education, but you have expectations, right? So the thing is, everybody has this expectation that they're going to make money. And if you go into the property industry, you see about this person's making this much money, this person making that much money, and you just see the numbers and you get like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed because you're thinking, I'm going to make so much money in property. What you need to do is realign your expectations and think, right, these people are doing this because they've been putting in the grind and doing it for a very long time in many cases. And even if people have done it very quickly, you don't see the hidden things in the background that have allowed them to be able to do this. You don't see the fact that I've been doing 10 years in marketing, but I bought 6 houses in 7 months. Like a lot of that was my business acumen, the relationships I built like prior to. I don't think that's like everybody can do that. I think you have to have that understanding that I'm doing this from my basis and where you are, and that's going to be different for everybody. So you need to be humble enough to be like, right, it's not about that I need to make money now. It's about learning as much as possible, helping other people, can be like yourself, helping people around, get around those people, absorb as much of the information, but try and help, like be a helping hand and get into their business and learn the ropes. Like if you can do and help with sales, try and do that. If you can help with the viewings, the refurb, project management, whatever it is, just start off at the bottom, work your way up, and do it that way. And you're going to learn so much more from. If I had done that, I would have learned so much more. If you were in a business where somebody's actually making money, first and foremost, don't do it like somebody who's just starting out because they ain't gonna know enough, right? I'm talking about getting to a business that's already making money, see how they operate. You can see all of the different intricacies of how this business is operated. You're going to learn far more probably than even a course itself, right? Obviously, you're going to take longer to learn that information, but you're going to see all of the ins and outs of it. I would say to do that and then try and get if you need that extra support, then get into education. Now, a lot of people want to do it quicker. Coaching is like the rapid form of that, get coached, and you're going to be able to do it a lot quicker because you might not have the time to be put it in, and you maybe getting a job within these companies and stuff like that. But take the idea of the wage and all this kind of stuff and how much you're going to make out of your head, and just focus on, right, I'm going to build the skills now that are going to allow me to catapult myself into new stratospheres in the future.
Wow. Brilliant. I think this is a very good tip for somebody who don't know where to start, especially the fact that you don't have to start your own business straight away. As you say, you can just tap into somebody's business who's already making money, so you can have that insight from within the business. And then, of course, if you decide to go your own avenue, that's absolutely fine. Or maybe it will create more opportunities for you, so you can create more connections and just tap into somebody else's business. And I think there is a statistics that 4 out of 5 millionaires in the world are working for somebody else. Mm-hmm. It just shows that they are very well skilled people and they're working for somebody else and they make money that way. So it's not that every single millionaire in the world is a business owner. In all fairness, it's just 20%. That's crazy. Not many people know about that statistic, but it's something that I recently discovered, and that's so true. For example, people in Wall Street, salespeople, marketing people, the good specialists really can make a lot of money. If you look to build that cash flow, absolutely. I would say this is a great tip to start working with somebody, for somebody, in exchange for the knowledge and the expertise that you're going to acquire. Give some services, right? And gain that experience, gain that knowledge. And you never know, because you might have the opportunity to team up with them or with somebody else, but you just don't see it now. One tip I would give to somebody who's looking to start in property, and I'm going to be brutally honest here, because as I say, I'm very pragmatic with my approach as well. And sometimes I don't mind calling a spade a spade. I would say just stop being bloody lazy, because it's just, you have to take into account that if you want to have more, there's definitely a change coming in a life, and we have to really start doing something that we haven't done in the past. That's obvious. Now, if we're not prepared to put in more work than ever before, then this will simply not work. At that point, you might just give up straight away. If you do want to see great results, then stop being lazy and be prepared that you will have to put in the work, effort, time, commitment. It's going to cost you a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, maybe sometimes. I wouldn't say blood, but who knows? In extreme events, maybe. But I would say, I think nowadays we see a problem with this. I think a lot of people are getting from a place where they're like lazy. They think that it's easy because maybe they heard it somewhere that it's easy to make money in property, it's easy this and that. And then people very often end up being disappointed because they heard it from somebody else, and they now are disappointed because they thought they'll just put in 20% of effort and they'll see the results coming. It doesn't work this way. I would say stop being lazy, wake up and really just put in the effort. And on top of all the tips that you've given people, this is like a ready-made recipe for somebody to start and scale, so that in the next few years, you really can be in a completely different place. You, your family, you're building a generational wealth. You're breaking the bloodstream wealth, isn't it? So this is huge stuff. So if not today, then there is no tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting what you say about the laziness. I think people don't give it enough time. I think time is something that people look at and they feel like they don't have enough of it, but they see that and understand how investing works, and investing works over time. The investment that you make in yourself is exactly the same. The money you spend, the time and effort that you spend now is going to pay off and compound over time. So you just need to see that it's a long-term play and understand that the time and effort that you're going to put in, and don't be lazy, but put the effort in. And don't get disheartened in the short term if things don't go swimmingly straight away, because you're learning, you're getting that time, you're under the grind. Like, diamonds are created through pressure, right? So it's the same thing. You're a lump of coal, you're under pressure, and eventually you're going to turn into a diamond, be hardened by it, you're going to be able to glisten, right? But it takes time, and it's time that is the greatest asset that you have in terms of the direction that you're going to go. People overestimate what they can do in a short period of time, but grossly underestimate what they can do in a long period of time.
Boom. I think at that point we can absolutely wrap it up, because there is I mean, there is so much more that we can say, but all this that we've mentioned today, with your wisdom, I do appreciate it very much because it's a ready-made recipe on where to start today, what to work on straight away, and maybe just starting to really creating those relationships and connecting with those people who can really elevate this to the next level. And with this in mind, I would say thank you very much for coming to the podcast today. I really
been a pleasure.
appreciate everything that you do. I'll keep following you on your social media because you're doing a fantastic job. One last thing, how to contact you if somebody wanted to reach out to you and maybe, offer you something maybe.
Yeah, well, the best place to go is probably the YouTube. So YouTube, you can type in Liam Davis property, should come up, or go to Instagram, Liam Invests. Not been doing too much recently because we're going through a big expansion within the company that's had a lot of my headspace, but I've got some older videos there that can definitely help people starting, but also looking to grow their property business.
Amazing. Thank you very much for coming. I do appreciate every single word that you said. And with this in mind, I wish you, have a wonderful week, have a wonderful weekend, and have a wonderful year, and have a wonderful decade.
Same to you, my man. And I
Thank you
appreciate
very much.
letting me
Thank you
come on
very
this
much.
podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing you in face to face very shortly, hopefully.
Yes, most definitely, dude.
Take care then.
Take care.